Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today and for your time during the next 20 minutes. My name is Beatriz Oliveira. I am the CEO and founder of BindTuning. And for those of you who cannot see me, I am a white woman in my 40s and I have light brown hair just above my shoulders. Just a little disclaimer before we get started. If you're looking to hear the story about building a multi-million-dollar business, don't waste your time because that's not what this session is about. This is a session about a story that may very well be your story, about a girl growing up in a country like Portugal, where failure actually means embarrassment, a country that sits on the other side of the ocean from the United States, and how this girl was able to actually build an international trusted business on some of the most difficult moments in her life. So this is me at the age of 10. I think I've always been smart and I was really hardworking. And growing up in a very small village in the north of Portugal, I think it was around this time when I had my first contact with a computer. You know, my best friend, she had a Spectrum, and groups of us, we would go to her house not to play, but to sit around the dining room table, watch her play. And I was fascinated, I was interested, but unfortunately, that was the closest I got to a computer until I went to college. Computers were really rare at that time, and there were no IT classes where I lived. IT, I don't even think it was a thing in Portugal, at that time during the 80s in Portugal. And during those times, becoming a doctor was probably the biggest achievement one could aim for. So I kept studying, studying hard, thinking that I should become a doctor. That was my best bet. And I became the best student in my entire county. I am telling you this story because when the time came to decide my future, I took what I think was my first truly brave decision. So I listened to my heart. I went against everything that was expected of me at the time, and I decided to go to IT engineering. And as me, I think that so many other girls plan their careers betting on the safe side, and thinking what others expect of them. And unlike boys, we are really taught to avoid failure and to avoid risk. And to me, taking this risk was the first real brave decision. And it was actually crucial to my future success. And as I started college, well, things weren't exactly easy. Those years were challenging. Besides my clear lack of experience with computers, I was one of the only 4 girls amongst 100 students in my class. You can see me in the photo during a freshman tradition. And I really had to push hard during those 5 years until graduation. But I was focused. When I was growing up, my parents' resources were extremely limited. And I think I always knew that my biggest goal was to be completely independent, self-sufficient, and eventually I would love to own a company. So I proudly graduated top of my class in 1997, and I got my first job as a consultant at Ernst & Young. So I moved from my little city in the north to the capital, Lisbon. My heart was full of dreams at the time. I was really excited about starting my professional career, but suddenly something very unexpected happened. In the beginning, I don't think I quite understood what was going on with me. I wouldn't feel okay. I was not really controlling my body. And this feeling of insecurity just started rising in me. And as weeks went by, I slowly entered a state of depression, which after a few months got really serious, to the point where I would not sleep because I was too afraid of not waking up. There were times when I would just paralyze in the middle of the streets, not able to move. And I think I was really, really depressed. But during this entire period, I never stopped working at Ernst & Young. somehow I think I was in denial. I actually got married to my husband during this period, until eventually I finally suffered a seizure. I passed out, I was taken to the hospital, and I was diagnosed with epilepsy. And because I didn't reach out for help before that seizure, it took me over a year of deep suffering to finally overcome what was probably the hardest year of my life. So I finally started being medicated for both epilepsy as well as for depression. And in a few days, really, in a few days, it felt like I was reborn. And just like that, that entire weight above my head disappeared. And I clearly remember the feeling of the immense blue sky above me. And that feeling of rising up from that very low point was a huge trigger for me. And it made me really take, another brave decision. I once again followed my dreams. I quit Ernst and Young, and together with these two friends, I co-founded my first tech company. I was 24 at the time. So the next 4 years were really intense, to say the least, probably. As with all startups, we worked like crazy, day and night to succeed. And the company really grew fast. I had to sacrifice a large part of my personal life. My two baby daughters were born during this time. And with everything going on, the babies, all the work that we had, I got really close to exhaustion. And in 2003, we had this major opportunity. We decided to sell the company to the biggest energy group in Portugal. And I make, a very harsh decision. I say, I want to leave IT. I don't want to work in technology anymore. I think I was burned out. And I decided to make another radical shift in my life. I decided to move to a completely different business area, and I start a new company, but this time organizing events. I don't know if I would call this a brave decision. Looking back, I think that I was just running away, reacting to the fact that I was so tired. And the following couple of years, actually, I think were kind of there to prove it. Our team was great. We were organizing parties, all sorts of celebrations and events. And from decorations to catering, I really had to learn a lot, but I wasn't happy. And, I wasn't happy because when you make decisions trying to run away from problems, sooner or later, I think you're just faced with your true self. And I was. But not that I didn't regret, and I don't regret this period. I think it was really crucial to clarify to myself what my purpose is, what really makes me smile, what makes me feel challenged, what makes me feel fulfilled. And I finally realized and I accepted to myself that I am truly happy working in IT. So I shifted back. I had been away from the tech market for 2 years. I knew that I needed to get up to date. I needed some leverage. I needed some kind of differentiation to get me back to the market. So I decided to go back to university, get additional training, additional skills. So I started in a postgraduate course, this time in a new area, communication and design, with a very specific goal of combining it with technology, so that I could enter the business of the web. And every week I would travel 200 miles each side to go to classes. I would leave my daughters with my mother for a couple of days every week so that I could fulfill that dream. And after a year, I was graduated. And in 2005, I start my third company, named Bind, with the goal of getting back to IT. And these are a couple of photos from the reception event that we did to launch the company. This time, I wanted to start small. I was still too scared of suffering from burnout or work exhaustion. So I scoped Bind as a web consulting company focused on small and medium businesses, with a national focus. And at the time, it was not in my plans at all to grow big. And for a couple years, I actually went on working like this. But life has, it has its way of unfolding, and it has its very own way of presenting itself to us. And one beautiful spring afternoon in 2008, my life changes its course once again. And I suffered a bicycle accident. Due to the accident, I suffered a severe fracture in my jaw, which subjected me to surgery to place a titanium plate to hold my jaw. And as if that wasn't enough, I suffered a facial paralysis. So half my face would simply not move. And, in that condition, I thought, okay, consulting is probably out of consideration. I can't go to customers like this anymore. Actually, for quite a few months, I could barely speak. And I knew that, with luck, I would have months of recovery ahead of me. But I remember that I couldn't really stand still while recovering in bed. And still during those first couple weeks, I just decided, and just to make something of my time, I decided to create a website theme design for a platform that was called .NET Nuke. And it took me about 2 weeks to create that first theme design. And I decided to put it up for sale on an online store that was called Snow Covered. And in about 1 week, I was the best seller in themes. I was so excited about this unexpected success that I decided to start working on designing a second website theme. And it took me about 4 weeks to build it. And as soon as I put it up for sale, I am back to the top of sales, number one again. So I realized, wait, this is an opportunity. I can really bring something new to this market. So I make the decision to stop my consulting practice, shift my company focus to, being a website themes company. And when I look back, that accident, that very hard moment in my life actually opened up the biggest opportunity I've ever had. And I'm really thankful that I had the courage to embrace it. So the following 3 years were the start of this incredible journey. As I continued to create more website designs, the business started flourishing. And I think that as with most founders, I was, kind of doing it all. I was the developer, I was the designer, I was the marketing person, the sales rep, I was the support person. I think that I was even the accountant. And those first years were super intense, tons of hard work, but I was super excited. And having to be involved in every aspect of the business really, really made me learn a lot. And not only, I was growing my kind of entrepreneurial skill set, but I was also evolving a new product idea. So I came up with a concept of creating a theme customizer where my customers could actually go and select a design. They could customize that design to their needs, while at the same time being able to select to which content management platform they would be able to create that design for. And for this, I hired a couple people to come on board. And around 2011, BindTuning was born. So BindTuning started as the first multi-platform marketplace for fully customizable themes. At the time, I stopped selling at Snow Covered, and I fueled all my sales to this new marketplace. I thinking, looking back, probably it was a risky move because we were selling so much in snow covered. But I think that it was a safe bet in the future. And at this point, one of the smartest decisions I made, and that allowed me to grow as an international business, was really positioning this marketplace for the international market. So we made decisions like we used a .com URL, the entire website and the entire knowledge base. They were both in English. Our support service was in English. We implemented PayPal for payments, and all this allowed us to grow international. And as we grew, after a few months, I realized that amongst the about 10 platforms that we were supporting at the time, there was one platform that was making more sales than all the remaining combined. And that platform was SharePoint. So I immediately knew that we needed to position BindTuning in the SharePoint market, and specifically for North America. So I make another, I think, smart decision. We decided to invest in going to a SharePoint event in the United States with a real booth. And at the time, this was quite a huge investment for us, but we took the chance. It turned out to be a huge success in every aspect, from driving visibility to help growing our credibility in the market, positioning BindTuning as one of the top players, because if you're there, it actually means that you're one of the best. And ultimately, it helped generating a lot of leads. And this was the first of dozens of events we participated in during the last 9 years. We got to the point where in 2019, just before the pandemic, we were doing around 10 to 12 events every year in multiple cities, across North America and in Europe. And actually, for a company headquartered in Portugal, going to events internationally is probably the most effective way to grow an international market. But we also invested in different types of events, namely those you go to try to get funding. And we went twice to South by Southwest in Austin. We went twice to Web Summit. At the time, it was in Dublin, but I was never successful. I could never find us an investor. This was when I think I kind of learned a hard lesson. As a female, it is much harder for you to pitch to investors, especially to be heard. And it is even harder when you're not living in the United States. I was asked many, many times if I was, willing to move. But to me, it was clear that I wanted to continue living in Portugal. I wanted to prove that it was possible to build an international company while working from my home country. I think that I accepted that we would have to grow organically. So besides continuing our strategy of participating in events and expanding through lead generation and these tech-focused events, I decided that we would also probably need to create a second channel. And that channel was growing a partner network. So we did. In the last 5 years, we were able to engage over 100 partners in over 30 countries worldwide. And currently, over 30% of our sales actually come from partner revenue. But a lot more has changed in these last 5 years. We went from 2 to 25 people. We now have offices in Portugal and the United States. And we greatly expanded our product suite by adding web parts, apps, Microsoft Teams, and automation to our offering. And I think that all of this was only possible thanks to 2 very dark moments in my life. A deep depression in my 20s and a severe accident in my 30s. They changed my life. But they changed my life by giving me an opportunity to change, an opportunity to embrace something new. And, life is a journey with ups and downs. And I learned to trust that after every downfall, there is always a climb, and that while at the top, the view is just incredible. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.